Welcome to the third webinar in this series, Supporting Students with Vision Loss. Thank you so much for joining us today, and this is the final webinar in this three-part series. If you missed the first two webinars, we covered the definition of vision loss and common eye conditions, and practical tips for making the classroom more accessible. Before I start, I'd like to do an acknowledgement of the country. I would like to acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first peoples and traditional owners and custodians of this land and waters. I pay my respects to the ancestors of this country, elders, knowledge holders and leaders, past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. I would also like to acknowledge the elders past, present and emerging of the Turrbal peoples, who are the traditional owners of the land and waters on which our Bald Hills office is located. Just to quickly cover it again, if you've missed the first two webinars, my name is Karen and I'm an Orientation and Mobility Specialist for Guide Dogs Queensland. What that means is O&M stands for orientation, which is where you are in your environment, whether or not that's at home or at school or at your workplace. And mobility is moving around from point A to point B. So basically my role is to assist clients in becoming independent travellers to move from one place to the other as safely as possible. In today's webinar, we will focus on adjustments for students in the school environment and accessibility to information. We'll break it up into two parts. One, environmental scan, and two, the accessibility toolkit. These adjustments are recommendations that have been compiled by our orientation and mobility specialists, occupational therapists, assistive technology specialists, and psychologists that have been working with students with low vision or blindness. Please consider that these are general recommendations in this webinar that can be used with your students in your class that may not have low vision or blindness. As an orientation and mobility specialist at Guide Dogs Queensland, one of our roles is to complete an environmental scan of the school environment. The objective of the scan is to identify the key issues that impact an individual with low vision or blindness and their ability to access the premises or facility. It is also to provide recommendations related to the removal of any barriers identified during the scan. A summary of the usual issues identified when completing the scan include corridors, walkways, thoroughfares, doorways, glare and lighting, pedestal objects or head height obstacles, poles and bollards, signage, steps or stairs, uneven ground surfaces and trip hazards. Corridors, walkways and thoroughfares. All corridors, walkways and entrances should be kept free of protruding obstacles. This includes windows that open out into walkways, fire hydrants, bins, notice boards, bags, lockers, chairs and tables. These obstacles should be moved or have protective barriers placed around them. Doorways. Doors that are left ajar can be potential hazards for a student with low vision. All doors and gates should remain either fully opened or fully closed. If door hooks or clips are available, they should be used to keep the doors open and secured. Self-closing mechanisms that control the speed at which doors can be opened and or closed may assist to reduce risk or injury to the student. Doors that contrast in colour to the door frame are easier to identify. Contrasting door handles in relation to the door are also advisable. Glare and lighting. Areas with inconsistent or poor lighting can be difficult to negotiate, and obstacles such as bags, steps, bins, people and poles can go undetected. Adjusting to vision fluctuations due to changing lighting conditions that is when moving from inside to outside, is often slower for someone with a vision impairment. It may be necessary to keep indoor lighting on, especially in darker or dimly lit areas where natural light is reduced, such as stairwells. Glare can also create as much difficulty as insufficient lighting. Therefore, measures need to be taken to maintain or increase levels of lighting, but to also reduce the glare. This can be achieved by avoiding shiny or reflective surfaces, using loose weave blinds, shade cloth, or tinted windows, or Venetian blinds where the angle of light and amount of light entering can be controlled. Here's some examples. When entering a doorway from glare into low light, a student should be given extra time to allow their eyes to adjust. The picture on the right, this stairwell is dimly lit. Extra lighting is recommended. Things which protrude from the wall or that are raised off the floor, or obstacles which are mounted on bases which are narrower than their own dimensions, are pedestal objects. These are difficult to detect even with a mobility aid such as a cane and can potentially injure a person. Examples of these are fire hose reels, locker doors, or power boxes, and can also include the space underneath stairwells. Overhanging tree branches or shrubs along pathways pose similar dangers. These objects should be removed where they pose danger or marked in a contrasting colour to the surrounding environment, making them more visible. If there is less than 2 metres clearance space underneath, the area can be enclosed or barriers can be placed. If these are not alternatives, warning tactile ground surface indicators, TGSIs, can be installed to indicate the overhead hazard as a last resort. Overhanging tree branches or shrubs along pathways pose similar dangers and should be kept trimmed. Locker doors should always remain closed when not in use or being unattended to. Here's an example. This power box protrudes out from the wall in a narrow corridor. Marking in a contrasting colour to the surrounding environment to make it more visible is recommended. Poles and bollards. Apart from steps and stairs, other areas commonly marked are posts and poles. Poles that are alongside or within a designated walkway should be marked with colour to increase its luminance contrast against its background. This can be achieved by marking the whole pole or marking with a minimum strip of 75mm with a height range of 1200mm to 1600mm from the ground. Consideration should be taken for the height of the intended users of the area. For example, a child's eye height in a primary school would require a lower placement than the height in a high school. These also include poles with high activity areas such as the post for the basketball hoop. Padding of these kinds of poles may also be considered. Poles with worn paint should be repainted to ensure they contrast to the surrounding environment and are more visible. Darker coloured poles in poorly lit areas can be hard to see and would benefit from high visibility marking to assist with improving their visibility. Here's some examples. These poles in the playground that would benefit from high visibility marking. Signage. Good signage is clear, concise and easy to read, and if prescribed includes braille and tactile information. Signage such as room names and numbers should be placed on the latch side of a door at a height of between 1200mm and 1600mm. Here's some examples. The blue signage next to the student change room door is appropriate, but contrasting colour signage on the door is recommended. And on the wooden glass door, M204 signage is difficult to see without backlighting. More contrast signage is recommended. Steps and stairs. Steps and stairs that are hard to see pose a significant hazard. The edge of the tread, which is the horizontal surface of the step, of all steps and stairs should be highlighted with a 50 to 75mm wide solid strip of non-slip paint, which is at least 30% difference in luminance contrast with the step surface. Luminance contrast, what is that, you ask? That is the amount of light reflected from one surface compared to that reflected from the background surface. Alternatively, commercial step edgings of a contrasting colour are also available. Continuous handrails should be present on both sides of all stairways and landings and be set at the height as specified in the Australian standard. The standard also specifies how far the handrail is to extend past the end of the stairs at the top and at the bottom. However, it should not encroach into the walkway and the ends should turn towards the ground or completely return to the wall or end post. Examples. In the picture on the left, it is difficult to identify the edge of these steps due to the lack of contrast in colour. Picture on the right, the steps that have been marked with a contrasting colour are much easier to identify. I mentioned earlier tactile ground surface indicators, also known as TGSIs. Where there are no tactile environmental cues present to indicate a drop-off or step-up, warning tactile ground surface indicators, TGSIs, can be installed. Their placement, type and luminance contrast will be prescribed by the relevant Australian standard and advice should be sought from an accredited access consultant. These examples, the spots are called hazard warnings and the directionals lead to something. Look out for them in your environment. Here is an example of stairs with very good contrast, sufficient hand railing and appropriate use of TGSIs, tactile ground surface indicators. The hazard warnings or the spots are placed at the top of the stairs and at the bottom of the stairs. In this example, the hazard warnings are very useful because the steps are actually unmarked and it's hard to see their edges. Here's a hazardous handrail example. Have a very close look at this example. If you rely on this handrail, you will miss the last step. What would you recommend? It is recommended in these pictures that railings be installed on these stairs as they get very crowded with students. The installation of contrasting coloured paint on the edge of the larger stairs is also recommended. Uneven ground surfaces and trip hazards. Ensuring the ground is as free as possible from trip hazards is important. Badly damaged paving is best replaced, while some areas of uneven paving can be ground down to make the edges flush with the adjacent sections. Pathways and paved areas should be kept clear and free from tree litter and other obstacles. Uneven ground and trip hazards. In this example, the highly patterned surfaces can make it difficult to see small obstacles. In these pictures, more uneven ground and trip hazard examples, manholes on the left and tree root damage on the right. These uneven ground and trip hazard examples, contrasting colour paint could be painted on the edge of these pavers in the picture on the left, and also to mark the uneven concrete as these are trip hazards in the picture on the right. Mats. All mats should be rubber backed or secured to the ground to reduce risks of slips or falls. Mats should be routinely checked and replaced if they are worn or have frayed edges, which could also pose a trip hazard. In summary, people with vision loss are required to maintain a high level of concentration when they are moving about. This can result in visual fatigue. The combination of visual fatigue and the need for concentration can be cognitively draining. Often small changes of behaviour, that is, doors kept fully open or fully closed, corridors kept clear of hazards, and understairs barricaded, can often deem the environment safer and more accessible. Other quick resolutions often involve the improvement of applying appropriate luminance contrast on the nosing of steps on poles or bollards. Accessibility tools. Accessibility tools for people with low vision and blindness. At Guide Dogs, we offer a range of tools and technical solutions to assist with accessibility. These tools are used by people living with low vision or blindness to support them to live life on their terms. Magnification. Magnification is the ability to increase the size of text and the size of images. This can be performed with a handheld device like a magnifying glass or through screen magnification software. Popular screen magnification programs for computers include Zoom Text, Windows Magnifier, Supernova. Along with computer magnifications, you can also access magnifying tools on your mobile phones to increase the content on your screen. Screen readers are exceptionally useful for people with blindness who cannot benefit from using magnification. A screen reader is a form of assistive technology, AT, that allows for text-to-speech reading of a computer screen. Screen readers are available on most devices. Smartphones have built-in screen readers, as do game consoles, TVs and computers. There is also third-party screen reading software available for those devices that don't have the technology built in. Popular third-party screen readers include JAWS, which stands for Job Access with Speech, NVDA, which stands for Non-Visual Desktop Access, and Windows Narrator. Canes. Canes are one of the most common forms of low vision accessibility tools for mobility. A long cane is a tactile mobility device that allows a user to safely navigate through their environment and to find a hazard before the user does. A cane user is someone who uses a long white cane. You might have seen people using canes when you've been out and about in the shopping centre or on the street. Canes no longer have to be white. The white and red cane is an internationally recognised symbol. Cane users can get customised canes so that they can express themselves. These days it's common to see canes in all types of colours, including rainbow canes. Accessibility fundamentals. There are a few simple tools and techniques that apply to most formats: email, social media and documents, that can make a huge difference to how your content is consumed. Consider the following to create more accessible contents for your students. Word documents. Word documents are a screen reader's best friend. Using a Word document that is well formatted is going to make it easy to read all the information. While PDF documents can be formatted to be accessible, this is more difficult and more time intensive to achieve. As a result, we recommend using Word documents where possible. Colour and contrast. Colour can be a powerful tool for communicating messages with impact. However, it's important to think about how and when you use colour, as this may not be accessible to everyone. Don't rely on colour to convey meaning. Instead, use words and descriptions. Contrast is about using different, easy to distinguish colours to identify things. You can find examples of contrast everywhere. Next time you see a road sign with a white background and black writing, you've experienced an example of something with high contrast. You can easily simulate contrast on your computer screen. If you are using Windows, press and hold Left Alt, Left Shift, and press the print screen button. Then press enter to confirm and your screen will be switched to a high contrast setting, usually a background with white text. Then you can repeat this gesture to undo it. Describe visual information. Sound is a best friend to someone with low vision or blindness. Providing audio descriptions for different visual elements can help your content and information be consumed in new ways that are accessible to all. You may choose to add audio descriptions to videos to help explain what is appearing on the screen. Or you may provide a handheld device that can explain different signs and information at your location. At Guide Dogs, we provide audio recordings of our important documents, such as our annual reports, to make sure that everyone who wants to learn more about our organisation can do so easily. Alternative text for images and photos. Photos and images are a wonderful way to get your message across and to engage your reader. To help people with low vision or blindness be able to understand that there is an image present and to know the context of the image, it's important to include alt text, which is also known as alternate text, and where possible, image descriptions. Alt text and image descriptions. Alt text is a written description of an image that's not visible to the standard reader, but provides useful information for people using screen readers. If you have a picture that doesn't have alt text, a screen reader will announce it simply as image, which doesn't provide any context of what the image is and can leave the reader confused. An image description is a more detailed option for providing written information of images or video. This is more like an image caption, providing additional information and detail of the entire image. These are often used in emails, under photographs in a document, or in website content. Here is an image, an example of the difference between alt text and an image description. Alt text, a picture of a dog sitting on the path. Image description, a white Labrador puppy is sitting in the middle of a footpath looking at the camera. The puppy wears a green harness that has the words Guide Dog Puppy on it. To learn more about adding alt text, see the Formatting Documents, Social Media Accessibility and Resources sections of the Accessibility Toolkit that is available on the Guide Dogs Queensland website. Organising aspects of the school environment. Schools could timetable the students' classes so they are in rooms that are close together. You could ensure the location of a locker is at the end of a row and in a well-lit area. A key lock might be better than a combination lock, or even a digital lock using a fingerprint could be used. Use the student's name to attract their attention rather than through gesture or eye contact. Circulate photos to staff so they are aware of students in the bus line or other confusing parts of the school. Possibly inform the regular bus driver. A student may have barriers in food technology classes or woodwork classes due to their vision loss. These students may require additional pieces of equipment to use, and the students and staff can be trained to use these by Guide Dogs Queensland occupational therapists. Consider possible obstacles to independent mobility when arranging the classroom environment. Remember that any changes will have to be explained to the student, especially chairs and tables. Access to PowerPoints may need to be considered and any electrical leads safely positioned, and provide additional storage space for equipment or audio materials. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to join the webinar today. It's because of you that children with vision loss will feel more included in their learning environment. At Guide Dogs Queensland, we assist you to improve access to and participation in curriculum and the educational outcomes for students with low vision or blindness. So if you'd like to get in touch, you can do so by contacting us on guidedogsqueensland.com.au 0735009060 or sdss@guidedogsqueensland.com.au.